topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Barry G. Fowler, EA, brings you Tax Talk for You right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. As an enrolled agent and a national leader in tax resolution, as well as trucker, bookkeeping, and tax planning with over 30 years of experience, Barry will break down taxes, bookkeeping, tax planning, and tax relief for individuals and businesses just like you. So let's have some Tax Talk for You with your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome. Mondays are always a great day, especially getting started talking about taxes, bookkeeping, IRS problem resolution, you name it, has to do with taxes. That's what we're here to talk about. I saw some things the other day. When you get older, you start thinking about Social Security. And, sometimes you don't really want to think about it. You don't want to think about retirement. You don't want to think about old age. But Social Security is one of those things sometimes you really got to think about. And it doesn't matter, whether you're 16 years old working at your first job or you're 67 and still working, you think about Social Security. When you're 16 and working, the first thing you do is you look at your paycheck and you go, oh my God, what are they taking out of my check? Look at all this money I'm paying in taxes. And even if it's not federal income tax or state income tax, you got hit with 7.5% for Social Security and Medicare, even though you're only 16 years old. So, getting older and you start feeling rushed, kind of like I was here today, running late to get to the show and almost forgot as I was in the middle of doing something that, man, I got to be here today. I got to talk about Social Security and, things like that happen. I think maybe it comes from the fact that you take almost 2-week vacation and you get back from that vacation a couple of weeks ago and you're still behind the 8 ball trying to get through every single thing that you need to get done or caught up on. And now you start going down that path. And by the way, if you've never been to Alaska, you need to put that on your bucket list and go. It is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. We did a trip on NCL from Vancouver to Whittier, and then did a little bit of an interior tour from Seward to Anchorage to Talkeetna to Denali to Fairbanks. And so gorgeous country up there. And we actually had beautiful weather. So I recommend that. I guess I'm getting old because I'm just going all around the places here today. And let's get back to Social Security. Let's give a little bit of a history lesson, shall we? Social Security here in the United States began when Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act on August 14th, 1935. Our first step towards socialism. Sorry, I got to hold those comments to myself. It was created as part of the New Deal to fight poverty and assist the elderly, unemployed, poor families. Social Security Administration actually has their whole history on their website. So beginning in August, Social Security Act became law, establishing the federal system of old age benefits. Now, most people, I can tell you, did not understand what this was getting into, what it was going to become to everybody that is working. They believed the government was taking these funds and putting them in a trust fund for their retirement. Not that they'd spend the money anywhere else, but we'll get to that part of my soapbox later on. In November of 1936, the government actually issued their first Social Security cards via the post office. And in January of 37, they started collecting payroll taxes. And so government was now getting money coming in. And, you know, looking up on the history and Social Security and the website and everything, Ida M. Fuller received the first ongoing monthly retirement check, and it totaled a whopping, drum roll please, if I had it, we would do it, $22.54. Woohoo! Actually, back in that day, it was probably a lot of money. You know, it was there to start keeping people out of poverty. You know, we came out of the Great Depression and everything that was happening back then. You know, people were, you know, wanting the government to do more to help. Back before that, it was a reliance on family, churches. But government wanted and needed you to become reliant on it, Big Brother. So Social Security is here. Now, most people didn't probably understand or didn't really know that when they set up Social Security, they also added clauses in for unemployment. They added clauses in for dependent children of poor families. So now they were getting deeper and deeper to being the big brother that lends out that helping hand. So we are going to take from everybody and give to everybody else. You know, churches were filling that role a lot more at that time. Families were relying on families. You saw families being more close-knit, more together, more helping. Now it's the government filling that role. You know, when you start looking at things that were happening in Social Security, you know, they decided to do some major expansions and additions to Social Security. Now in 1950, Congress approved the first formal cost of living raise to benefit amounts. So they put a cost of living adjustments in. 1956, they added disability benefits and early retirement options, age 62 for women, and things like that were added to the law. 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson added Medicare into law with administration assigned to the agencies. Medical insurance and Medicaid and Medicare, all this stuff, man, that should be a topic for a different day. What happened in the medical industry? What happened to all of us when you got Obamacare and small businesses and health insurance? But that's for a whole different day of a different soapbox. In 1972, President Richard Nixon signed legislation creating automatic annual cost of living adjustments and established the supplementary security income. So, you know, hey, all these things that, you know, you were going through and looking at are what is costing us more and more money every year, and why people are more and more concerned whether, hey, are you going to get Social Security or not? In 1983, there was bipartisan legislation, reform signed by President Ronald Reagan to adjust the retirement age incrementally and begin taxing a portion of benefits for higher income recipients to rescue program funding. So, you know, they started increasing the retirement age to try to save Social Security. They started adding taxes in for Social Security. This was an offset that Ronald Reagan gave up to get other tax cuts and other things that he got during his administration to set us on a course for major, major expansion. But it also expanded Social Security for people and it increased the taxes for people. Present day, the system is actually supporting over 70 million Americans across retirement, survivor, and disability programs. Pretty crazy, if I don't say so myself. Now, some of the things, let's go back in history. And let's talk about your Social Security card first. All right. Social Security card. Now, I still got my original Social Security card and what my Social Security card says on it. You ready? This is not for identification purposes. That's right. Many people don't know that. Many people don't understand it. But until the 1980s, your Social Security card expressly stated that the number and card were not to be used for identification purposes. But hey, guess what? Since nearly everyone in the United States now has a number, it became convenient to use it anyway. And the not for identification purposes and message went away. Pretty amazing. See, back in the day, people really didn't want to be assigned a number. Matter of fact, you did not have to have a number for your kids. So, it wasn't until we were older that we got Social Security cards when the government decided it was a necessary evil that everybody had to have one. Now, when you have a child, you immediately apply for a Social Security number and card upon birth. You file for that. You get that. Your children immediately have a Social Security number. They're a number in the system. So, those are the kind of things that, you look at and you go, interesting. Did you know that when Franklin Roosevelt introduced the Social Security program, his promises were in black and white, that participation in the program would be completely voluntary? Not today. Not today. It is mandatory and required. That you as a participant would only have to pay 1% of the first $1,400 of your annual income into the program. That 1% is now 7.65% on the first 90,000. And actually, that's a lot higher than that nowadays. And then total between you and the employer is 15.3%. If you're self-employed, it's 15.3%. And that limit has gone way up since then. That money that you were putting in to the system was deductible from your income taxes. It's no longer deductible now. You don't get a deduction for what you contribute to Social Security. Hey, that's tax money. Whoa, stop. Wait a minute. I just contributed 7.65% of my gross income into Social Security retirement. And then when I get the money back, when they so graciously grant me that I can take money back in retirement, they're going to tax me on that money again? And it doesn't sound right, but it's called tax the rich. And guess what? If you're taking Social Security and making other money, you might even have to repay some of those benefits back. Was that in the system then? It's really crazy on what senators, congressmen, and presidents have decided to do to this program. You know, one of the things when they were talking about these annuity payments, these retirement payments that are being paid out to you, it was promised in the system, remember, that you would never be taxed as income. However, under Clinton Gore, up to 85% of your Social Security benefits became taxable. Now, President Trump has managed to make money non-taxable to you based on what your gross adjustable income is. So you may not be faced tax. You may get some credits back there to offset the tax you're paying. But that was Trump doing that his best to offset what was put in place by Clinton Gore. It is crazy. Now, here's something even more interesting. When they started the Social Security program, the money that you, I, all participants put into the trust program were to go into a trust fund. Now remember, this was voluntary. You had a choice to be in this program, contribute that 1% of the first $1,400 you made, and completely voluntary, and it was going to a trust fund, not into the general operating fund, and therefore would only be used to fund Social Security retirement program. No other government program. Again, no other government program. It was specifically for the retirement program. That means it wasn't there available to use for helping the needy. It wasn't there for the other things that this fund, that the Social Security program was set up for. It was set up specifically as a trust fund for those voluntary participants into the program for their retirement. Who changed that? Do you know? Because it was changed. It was changed so that they could use these funds for other purposes, not for what they specifically stated the purpose to be, was your, mine, and everybody else that was voluntarily at that time participating in the program. And when it became non-voluntary, it still should have been in a trust fund for you and I and each participant's retirement. Now I'm going to tell you who changed that right after we take a short break. We're sponsored by Taxation Solutions, Tax Relief, and we're going to take a break right out, and we'll be right back after the short break. Thank you.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. If you owe the IRS or are going through an IRS audit, don't go at it alone. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. We are your solution for IRS debts, audits, back taxes, garnishments, liens, and levies. Whether you're an individual or business, you need a solution and a strong, aggressive tax resolution. Don't let the IRS walk all over you. Stop the IRS now. Call 888-930-1016 or go to taxationsolutions.net now for a free, no obligation consultation. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome back. Talking about Social Security, I'm sure I'll probably never hear the end of it, but some of these things we've got to get out. And sometimes you got to talk about Social Security, especially when you start talking about, hey, I'm going to start taking Social Security now, or I'm going to take it later, or I'm going to take it in the future, or maybe I can take it right here when I'm 62, or maybe I'm going to wait till I'm 70. Whatever your choice is, it's the choice you make in life and amount of money you're going to get and stuff. But we're talking about history right now of Social Security. And since so many, everybody that is an American citizen working here in the United States have paid into FICA or Social Security and Medicare for years. I mean, basically you've been paying since you first started working, and you're paying till the last day you work. Even if you are retirement and taking Social Security, if you've got a job or part-time job or doing any kind of work, you're still subject to Social Security tax. It doesn't stop because you took Social Security and retirement. They don't stop collecting from you. If you're working, you're going to pay continually. So if you're receiving a check every single month, and you're now finding out that you're taxed on 85% of the money we pay to the federal government to put away, you're going to be very interested to know which political party took Social Security from the independent trust fund and threw it right into the general fund. So Congress could do what they do best: spend money. And they know how to spend. May not be able to track it, but they can spend it. All right, drum roll. Maybe you can guess it. It was Lyndon B. Johnson and the democratically controlled House and Senate. Took it right out of the independent trust fund and right into the general fund, and sent this on its way to being a sinking ship, trying to go down almost as fast or faster than the Titanic. Why do you think people don't think Social Security is going to be around? Government's over trillions of dollars in debt, and it just continues to get worse. Not because we overtax people, it's because we overspend money. I haven't met a politician yet that hadn't loved to spend money. It's not their money they're spending, it's yours and mine. We need to get term limits back in for the Congress and for the Senate. It used to be you were there to serve your country, not to serve yourself. When's the last time you've known a bartender to, within 8 years, to become a millionaire? Hey, great. Maybe you became the next Elon Musk, but no, when you're just serving in government and become that rich, there's something wrong. Soapbox for another day. Sorry. As my wife says, my soapbox sometimes expands and we just kind of go off, and we can lecture. Speaking of, we're getting off on a tangent here, but speaking of Elon Musk, we were on vacation, and sometimes, my wife has to elbow me and tell me, hey, just keep your mouth shut. And somebody asked me what I do. And, I told them, I said, hey, we work in the tax resolution business. I'm an enrolled agent, and I work and fight against the IRS. Man, that's great. That's great. We got to keep more money out of Elon Musk's hands. What does Elon Musk have to do with the government? Well, he was running that one office over there and taking money. Actually, he was fighting for you and I. And he has too much money anyway, and he shouldn't have all that money. Elon Musk has done a lot of great things. He started Tesla. He's done other companies out there, and he has earned every dime that he makes and pays pretty hefty in the taxes. He is obviously above the top 1% of earners in the United States and pays plenty more taxes than you and I and everybody else out there. And as a matter of fact, most places he runs, he does not take a salary, but gets stock options and other things, and he's well worth the money that he he does make, and he does a lot of philanthropic things with his money and helping people and doing other things that people are not really aware about him. But he also pays all his employees very, very well. So if you want him to stop being a billionaire or trillionaire, whatever he may be now, and you want him to give more money there, then he's going to do less for people in their jobs and create less businesses, which creates less jobs, which means he's not going to be expanding the economy and things like that. I said, so my wife at that point elbowed me and basically told me to shut up. You know, people don't want other people to have money and want people to take more money. But when you are making money and then the government decides that, hey, they need more money, they're going to take it from you, and you become part of that higher class of earners, you now don't like it because it does restrict what you can do and the investments you can make into your business. Oh, fun. All right, let's get back to Social Security, off that soapbox onto this one. Which political party eliminated the income tax deduction for Social Security withholding? You guessed it, it's the Democratic Party as well. Which political party started taxing those Social Security annuities? I've already been through this one. You're right, it's the Democrats. Clinton, Gore. Guess who decided and cast the tie-breaking vote as the president of the Senate while he was the sitting vice president of the United States? See, it was a tie. They were not going to tax the Social Security money that you were taking. Al Gore is the one that cast that deciding vote with the Democrats. Now, here's one that always gets my goat. Did you know Social Security annuity payments are given to immigrants? See, I find it really hard. And I find this one probably the hardest for me across the board. My mom was a teacher. My mom worked a regular job for many, many years, and then supported the household, went back to school, got her teaching degree. When me and my four sisters were all in school, elementary through up to high school, my mom got her teaching degree and then decided then she could go outside of the house to work a full-time job to make money as a teacher and paid into teacher retirement. But she had also contributed many, many years to Social Security before that. Before my father and her got married, she worked a little bit. She worked a little bit where she could, off and on, doing jobs that paid into Social Security as well. And then she goes to retire, and she can't take Social Security because she had teacher retirement, but yet she paid in to this Social Security system, but she couldn't get it. Now, one political party decided to start giving annuity payments to immigrants. And that party was Jimmy Carter and the Democrats. When immigrants moved into this country and at age 65 began to receive Social Security payments, the Democratic Party gave these payments to them even though they never paid a dime. Not a dime into Social Security. That was yours, mine, everybody's money. People don't always realize the things that our government does that are never disclosed. And then when they are finally disclosed, they try to make you and I feel bad that our government is being stopped from helping these poor immigrants. Well, if you're rating my Social Security funds, my retirement funds, the funds that I contributed, supposedly at one time voluntarily into the system and now became mandatory, we don't have a choice. We got to pay Social Security and Medicare into the system. That choice was taken away from us a long time ago. That becomes a real issue. Now, the original contract between Americans and the government, the Democrats who started this program took all of those original commitments from you and I and gave things away to other people that never contributed a dime to this retirement fund, what should have been maintained as a trust fund. Matter of fact, I remember when George Bush was in the office, George W. Bush, he was thinking maybe we should be able to set these retirement accounts up into yours and mine individual name. He wasn't talking about the amount the employer was putting in. He was talking about the 7.65% that we were putting in for Social Security and Medicare to go into your own name. So those would become dedicated accounts. He would have figured out they were working on finding ways out to take and put it in for the younger people, and that they would have their own account set up and being able to know that, hey, they've got this much money being earned for themselves for their own retirement. And can you imagine if you had 7.65% pulled out of your check every single paycheck and put into a 401k that is dedicated just to you, how much money you would have every single year put into that account for your retirement, and then extrapolate that out to even just the simplest and smallest investment into mutual funds or money market accounts, just earning maybe 3% on them. That extrapolates out there. If it's involved in a mutual fund, then you got stock growth. Things like that would have made a huge difference in yours and mine life. Go back and look at your earnings. If you want to see your earnings, go to SSA, Social Security Administration. You can log in, set yourself an account up. Every year, you can see what earnings they've put in for your Social Security. Now take that money and go back to when you started working, take 7.65% of everything you've earned your lifetime. You don't even have to take your extra interest or anything else that would have accrued to that and everything. Just take what your earnings were. Maybe over your life, you've earned $1 million. So take 7.65%. If you back it up and do it every year and just put it into a calculator, what would I have over this period of time? It's going to tell you where you would be and what you'd be worth. Why do you think we tell people these days, including my own kids, when they got their first job, first thing you do, maximize your 401k. Put in the full amount. Why do you think government takes money out of your check from the very first day? Because after you see that first check, you eventually get over it. That's what they wanted. That's why they take federal income tax withholding out of your check, because if you wrote a check every year for the amount you owe in tax, nobody would be happy. Nobody. If you had to write a check for Social Security every single month to contribute to the fund yourself, you wouldn't be happy. Nobody would. So if they pull it out first, you never miss it. So if you contribute to your 401k right off the bat, if your company offers it and they have a match, maximize that. After a period of time, guess what? You'll never feel it. If it's your first job, you definitely never feel it. If you've been doing it all along and you move jobs and you take another job and they have a 401k and you start maximizing over there, again, you the first check and you see it, you never feel it. Because they basically get you to be passive, little patsy, paying the tax. And now it's coming out before you get your check, and you don't pay attention anymore. You know, the worst part about this is people, everyday people, every American citizen, not being informed. You know, if more and more people knew the history, the current ongoings of Social Security, you would be upset. You would be mad. You know, the changes that they made and the things that they did to the people that they sold this whole program to, this whole scam to, you know, they would be going, this is not what I wanted for my kids. You know, I talked to my grandfather who, you know, really funny is he worked for the railroad and he had railroad retirement, but he also worked and paid into Social Security. He could not get both. He paid his retirement benefits into Social Security, but he had other jobs, or to railroad retirement system. But then he had other jobs that he worked to support his family, because my grandmother never worked. And then my grandmother finally went to work and worked at a bank for a period of time and everything. So she eventually did have a job and paid into Social Security. And then, you know, going through and trying to collect from Social Security and railroad retirement for my grandfather, he could not get both. When my grandmother passed away, he got no survivor benefits from what my grandmother paid in. They didn't allow him to get that money. So he looked at me and said, grandson, this doesn't make sense. Why? Because the law was changed. Things that should have stayed and should have happened changed. It changed because of the way people vote. And that makes life a little bit more difficult. Now, what can we do to rectify, and what are the plans to do to fix Social Security? I don't know what government plans are, but I do have a few direct ideas. We're going to talk about some of those ideas right after this quick break.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by, as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. If you owe the IRS or are going through an IRS audit, don't go at it alone. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. We are your solution for IRS debts, audits, back taxes, garnishments, liens, and levies. Whether you're an individual or business, you need a solution and a strong, aggressive tax resolution. Don't let the IRS walk all over you. Stop the IRS now. Call 888-930-1016 or go to taxationsolutions.net now for a free, no obligation consultation. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome back. You know, fixing Social Security is one of those things that it really comes back down to fixing the government, getting the government back to what is in and only in the Constitution. Defense of our borders, regulation of interstate commerce, not control interstate, regulate. Not regulate what happens in your state. Change the way you vote. If you're voting for the party that made all these changes, you're voting wrong way. If you're looking to protect this nation and this country, sometimes it's the way people vote. Here in Texas, many of us are Republicans. Many of us are just conservatives, not affiliated with one party or the other. We're looking for the most conservative person to rein in government spending. So my first proposal would be to rein in government spending. What's the first place to rein in government spending? Government pensions. Every government employee should not be in a separate pension program. That includes your senators. That includes your House members. That includes every single person that works for the government. Should be in Social Security program, contributing to the same program as you and I. You want to see that program get fixed immediately? You put every government person in the same program that you and I are in, and they will turn around and fix Social Security immediately. They have no need, no desire. It doesn't affect them in their pocketbook. But if they were part of Social Security, it would. And it would change things immediately. That's right. It would change it immediately. Second, put term limits in for Congress. If it's good for the president, it's good for them. Which means we may need a constitutional amendment to change it, to put the term limits in, but we could do it for changing the term limits for the president. We can do it for term limits for your congressmen. Your congressmen and senators used to go to serve you and I. It wasn't a full-time job. They would go up, do the things they need to do, pass a budget and get out, go back to their jobs, not I would say 365 days a year, but I think our government only works maybe 285 days out of the year. And, they take recesses even though they haven't passed a budget yet. And they're going to fight over these things. And what they should do is get rid of the things that the government is not in the Constitution, just eliminate them immediately. Get their hands out of our lives. Give the control back to where the control was supposed to be, within the states. Let states control it. We can rein in this budget. We can do a balanced budget. We can actually have a surplus budget. The government here in Texas has a surplus budget. We should be able to have a surplus budget for the United States. And we should be able to rein down what our national debt is. That's an incredible burden to pass on to not just our children, but our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. My father, before he passed away, that was the worst thing that he saw out there. Our family always lived within our means, always within budget. He always professed that we should never be in debt. And, especially credit cards. Yes, we had house notes or car payments, things like that. Yes, credit card debt, get rid of it. Get it paid off. If you can't afford it, don't pay for it. Get yourself a budget. Rein in the federal government. Get our government into a budget that makes sense, that reins it in, get it within the confines of what is expected to come in. Don't run a deficit. Put back onto the states what should be the state's problem, not the federal government's problem. They're talking about, hey, eliminating or raising the payroll cap. The payroll cap, I did mention earlier it was 90,000, but that was a few years ago, many, many years ago. It's actually up to 184,000. So the first 184,000 that you and I would make is subject to the 6.2% for Social Security. So they say, well, the fix is either eliminating or completely removing that cap, and you pay it on 100% of your compensation. Increase the payroll tax rate. They're talking about gradually increasing that rate to 12.2% by another, and the 12.2% is the combined rate between employer and employee, and increasing it an immediate 3.5 percentage points. And if they increase that, take more money from you and me, it would increase the life of the system by 75 years. It doesn't work. That just doesn't make complete sense to tax you and I and everybody else more and more and more. Taxing does not fix the problem. Take the immigrants, the people that never paid into the system, off the system. Put the money back into the trust fund that was supposed to be there. These things can help fix Social Security and the government as we go. Increasing tax rates doesn't do it. Reducing benefits to you and I doesn't do it. Increasing the full retirement age to 69 or 70, is going to help a little bit. But then again, it's forcing you to work longer and pay more into the system to get less out. The older that you've got to work to, the less time you have to collect, and the less you're going to collect, which benefits the government. See, it's 62. I look at it this way. If my income is such that I don't have to pay it back, I'm taking retirement immediately. Because I'm going to collect more over the next 5 years till I would reach full retirement age. And it would take me close to 10 to 15 years, depending on how much money I could make off the money that I'm getting, to recoup what I didn't take for the first 5 years. You got to run the numbers and see what the difference is. They talk about changing the consumer price index and the cost of living increases to, be less. But a lot of retirees are dependent on that money coming in from Social Security. So reducing the cost of living adjustments with inflation being so high. I mean, we went through heck during the Biden years with inflation. Inflation has come down under Trump, but we still have inflationary pressures. We're still running higher than we were under Trump's first administration. And eventually that will come down when some of the other factors continue to keep a play into this thing. It will slowly reduce its way down. The other thing they're talking about is reducing the monthly payments to the ultra wealthy retirees who don't rely on Social Security for basic survival. Meaning if you have a 6-figure limit to cap couples payout, if you're making $100,000 annually or more, you wouldn't get a payout. See, these are Democratic proposals, and they think at $100,000 you're rich. So they're just trying to tax you. These things don't work. Hey, what does work? Let's get off the soapbox. What does work is Taxation Solutions Tax Relief. We work for you. We fight against the IRS to stop them from taking everything you have. If you owe the IRS money and you can't afford to pay them, call us at 888-930-1016. Again, 888-930-1016. Hey, I appreciate you being here. As always, here on Tax Talk for you. We're here Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Monday. Sometimes you get to listen to me on my soapbox and talk about things that are important. But what you got to do is be here at W4CY Radio, Mondays at 10 a.m. If you do miss it, you can go to taxtalk, the number 4, letter U.com follow us over there, see all of our podcasts, or you go to iHeart, Spotify, and all that. Hey, whatever you do this week, have a God-blessed and glorious week. And we'll see you back here next Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio on Tax Talk, number 4, letter U.com. We'll see you next week.
Are you an individual or business that wants to understand taxes and how they affect you? Are you looking for specific tax advice for self-employed, business owners, and truckers? Are you behind on taxes and your bookkeeping? Are you dealing with the IRS and ready to have some relief? Then you need Tax Talk for You, hosted by tax and trucker expert Barry G. Fowler, EA. Tune in 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Monday right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Don't forget to check this and past episodes at TaxTalkForYou.com. See you next week at W4CY.com.